Hello friends, this is Brother Les again with my last address before the very consequential elections coming up in about a week. I want to tell you a true story, and you can look it up to read the story in more detail, called Sing a Little Louder. In World War II, a little country church in Germany was next to the route, the train loaded with Jews who were headed to the Auschwitz extermination camp came on that route. At first, when the train went by, the congregants were alarmed and went over to the windows to see the train going by as they heard the anguished cries for help. But instead of bravely intervening, they chose to be indifferent and ignore, thinking there was nothing they could do. How could they take on the Nazis? It would be too dangerous. So they changed their Sunday morning service time so they would be singing as the train went by. And they sang a little louder to drown out the cries of those being taken away to their death. God help us. God forgive them. Later on, one of their congregants or several shared this story and asked the Lord to forgive them. Friend, if you had lived in the Old South many years ago, would you have spoken out against the evil of slavery? Would you have secretly helped as many people, many slaves as possible escape and being part of the Underground Railroad? Or would you have chosen to remain silent and just prayed about it but taken no action? Would you have voted for Lincoln? Or just said, like many today, well, it doesn't really matter who is president, God is still on the throne, implying that the kind of leaders we have doesn't matter at all? Well, the Bible makes it clear the kind of leaders a nation has make a very big difference. And the stories of 2 Samuel, 1st and 2nd Samuel, actually starting with Judges, and then 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, and repeated in the Chronicles, make it very clear good leaders helped Judah, the southern kingdom of Judah, Jerusalem, do so much better. But the bad leaders took them down, 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 eventually to their destruction. What if you were a church leader in Germany in the 1930s and 40s? Would you have been part of the 3,000 who fully trusted, thought they could trust, and fully followed Hitler? Or the 12,000 who complied but just kept quiet? Or would you have been a part of the courageous 3,000 pastors, along with Bonhoeffer, who opposed Hitler and worked to save Jews even at great personal cost? You say you would have stood up against slavery and helped many escape. You also say that you would have been among those who bravely opposed Hitler's plan to annihilate the Jews and would have helped them to escape also. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. And if you really did this, you would have been obeying God's word. There are many verses on defending the weak, poor, orphan, and the widow. Proverbs 24:10 through 12 is especially pertinent to our discussion here. If you falter in times of trouble, how small is your strength? Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back on those staggering toward slaughter. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who guards your life know it? Will he not repay each person according to what he has done? This verse and others make it clear that God will judge us for not taking action to help those who needed our help. He'll hold us responsible. That's very sobering, isn't it? But what about you today, Christian? Will you sing a little louder and be indifferent to the cries of those whose lives are being snuffed out and exploited? And you might ask, well, wait, who is in danger of being, of dying or being exploited in exploited in our nation? And what can we do about it? Well, several groups come to mind. The unborn. If Harris and Waltz are elected, they have stated they will do all they can to push for abortion in every state without restrictions, resulting in the deaths of many thousands more being put to death each year. God help us take action. And by the way, in her televised address, both hers and, debate, and Waltz's debate with J.D. Vance, he said, oh no, I wasn't in favor of, abortion right up to birth, but actually he was. When he was the governor of Minnesota, he voted in favor of that. He approved of that. So he was lying. The children and youth of our nation. What would it take, friend, for you to stand up and oppose the agenda of the left, which Harris and Waltz are part of? Would you act indifferent until one of your own children or grandchildren comes home from school and announces he or she is transgender now and has been being given transitioning hormones secretly while they were away at school? At the recent Million Women rally in D.C., which some in our family attended, one of the speakers said that now 1 out of 3 children and youth from Christian homes now identify as trans. Did you hear that? 1 out of every 3. The advocacy group, quote, Stop the Harm, reported that between 2019 and 2023, almost $120 million was spent in transitioning 14,000 minors. 8,500 were given hormone blockers, and 5,500 mutilating surgeries. Harris and Waltz strongly support this practice, but Trump has gone on record saying he will put a stop to this. Here are a few more critical issues where innocent people are being hurt and killed in our nation, which, with the right leadership, this could be greatly reduced. The increasing young children and youth who are being sex trafficked right here in our country. The numerous problems due to the open border, which, by the way, I don't remember the exact figure. I have reported it on an earlier video, I believe, but many thousands of children have been brought across the border and disappeared. And there's great concern that they're being sex trafficked in our country. Here's some more. People being robbed and hurt. I just heard the report recently of a lady from Colorado that a very deadly gang, a very dangerous gang from Nicaragua showed up, or actually Venezuela, showed up fully armed. And they finally forced her and perhaps some others out of their apartments, which, that was their apartment, and they took over. And this kind of thing is happening more and more, where these dangerous people who have been led across the border are committing more and more crimes, and car hijacking is way up as well. These are things that can be changed dramatically with good leadership. Trump greatly reduced this, as well as the many, about 100,000 fentanyl deaths each year. Again, especially related to the open border. These are just some of the important issues that the presidential and other elections will decide. Others I've mentioned in my video, 10 key areas to vote biblically, are God, mankind made in His image, and thus holy and sacred, not lives that we can snuff out, male and female, holy marriage, the family, private property, support of Israel, borders and defense, religious freedom, and the church and its mandate. I contrasted in that video how on just using those biblical criteria, which I'm sure you would agree are very important criteria, Harris and her running mate, Waltz, fail on every one of those. So they might say they believe in God, but if they don't follow God's word in hardly any areas at all, then no, they don't really believe in the God of the Bible. But Trump scores very well on those areas. Now, you're not going to find a leader, or it will be difficult to find a leader that scores a perfect 10 out of 10 on all of these. But he scores well on the vast majority of them, Trump and J.D. Vance. If you haven't watched this video, I urge you to do so and send it to others. Please, friend, please do not be indifferent. Don't sit out this election. And if you or your pastor has been silent on these issues, please speak out and urge others to vote righteously. In Ezekiel 9, we read about a man who's probably an angel who was to put a mark on the people who sighed and mourned over the abominations in Jerusalem. We need to ask the Lord to give us His burden for the many that are being hurt and killed right here in our nation. Innocent people, starting with the unborn. Then we must take appropriate action. In our nation, we have the rare privilege in all of history to select our leaders at every level. Very few people in history had that luxury, that privilege, that opportunity, and many had to suffer under not just bad leadership, but dictators. Please take this seriously and vote for righteous people, those most closely aligned with biblical values. And if you are a church leader, I urge you to realize this is part of your assignment, to equip the saints entrusted to you, to teach them how to vote biblically. My comprehensive video I mentioned above on voting biblically will be helpful. You don't actually even have to mention elected officials by name. You can simply go over those key areas, then they can look it up on the iVoter Guide or other voter guides that are available through other conservative and Christian groups, such as Family Research Council. If you click the Manage Videos box at this YouTube channel, then it will put all my videos in order. You can scroll down and find other recent videos I've made related to the election, and a pretty comprehensive one I made called The Hidden Agenda of Harris and the Left, which, by the way, their agenda is to take America down, bring America down, or completely dismantle our form of government and replace it with at the very least, socialist, but probably even more strongly a Marxist, communist type government. Why am I saying that? Because that's the kind of That's what they've supported in the past, and they have aligned themselves, Harris and Waltz, with groups that are Marxist, World Economic Forum. Waltz made about 30 trips to China, taking groups of young, impressionable students and speaking very highly of their form of government. That shows what he wants to do. If any of my videos are helpful to you, please share them with others who may still be undecided. Unfortunately, too many people are still listening to the mainstream media, which for years now have put out so many lies. Started with the big crisis of 2020. Almost everything they promoted has turned out to be shown to be a lie. And then they've lied repeatedly about Trump. And they'll say he will be just like Hitler and all this. And Marx said that one of his, remember he's the one who started Marxism, okay, or communism. And he said, accuse your opponents of that which you yourself are doing. So many of the things they keep accusing Trump of, they have already been doing themselves. They're the ones who are a threat for our form of democracy, which is called a republic. They keep accusing him of things, but for example, the January 6th, he didn't try to start a big riot or anything like that, and they're the ones who idly stood by, and they said there should be more riots in our cities. And there were people who caused great damage in Indianapolis, in Portland, and other cities in our nations, and they sat back and did nothing, especially Waltz in Minnesota. So they're the ones who are promoting that to take down America. Anyway, there are many who say they're believers, who said they're going to sit out. Please send, if you know anyone like that, send these videos to them to help them and show them if they are a believer, we can't be silent and inactive anymore. God will hold each of us responsible, and especially if you are a church leader. If God's people go out and vote in line with His Word, we can elect leaders that will really help our country turn away from these terrible leftist ideologies. Then the church can be protected to obey its biblical mandates, to evangelize, plant churches, make disciples, and be salt and light. Lay aside passivity and be brave and strong, Christian. Fear and obey the Lord. Lastly, if you're a believer, I urge you to fast and pray, unless you have a medical condition where you can't fast. But fast and pray that good leaders who fear God and love people and love our country will be elected at every single level, from the presidency to Congress, the Senate, various judges, and local and state races, even down to school board, and sheriff. We need good, God-fearing leadership, competent leadership, who care about our country and take their oath to uphold the Constitution and not dismantle or change it seriously. And don't forget, even the best leaders, they're not pastors, okay? And so they can't solve other problems. They have the ones that they're to work on, and they're going to have to pray a lot too because of all the challenges. But we need a heaven-sent awakening. Pray for that, and revival. So this is not in any way to downplay that. Continue to pray for that. And thank you for listening to this. Friends, don't just sing a little louder in your church and ignore all these helpless, innocent victims. Speak up and act and vote and urge others to do the same. and join me in fasting and praying over the next week. God bless you.